swords and stones in the dead of night, rolling dice under flickering light. Gamers' hearts pounding in their chest, chasing glory, never letting it rest. Roll the dice, fight the beast, legends born and released. Raise your blades, feel the fire, dreams of heroes climbing higher. Dungeon deep, cold and dark, monsters lurking, leave their mark. Gamers whisper plans in the air, bravery's the answer to despair. Roll the dice, fight the beast, legends born and released. Raise your blades, feel the fire, dreams of heroes climbing higher. Dungeon deep, cold and dark, monsters lurking, leave their mark. Gamers whisper plans in the air, bravery's the answer to despair. Roll the dice, fight the beast, legends born and released. Raise your blades, feel the fire, dreams of heroes climbing higher.
Hey gang, Tim here from Swords and Stones. Thought I'd do up another quick novelty video. This time I'm going to do a little scroll through of the facelift of their game guide. So here we have Swords and Stones, a tabletop role-playing game about fantasy, survival, and adventure. So what I've done is I basically redid the look, redid the logo. We'll go back to the front page here real quick. The logo itself, I actually hand drew the swords on my original logo. I got this gem clip art from online, and the Swords and Stones was a font that I found within Publisher. So what I thought was, seeing as I'm doing a facelift for my game guide, I thought I'd get this redone a little bit too. And yes, I took the easy route and I went with AI through ChatGPT. Basically just put my logo in there and said, hey, emboss this. And this is what I come up with, and it looks, I think, pretty cool. Give it a little bit of depth, a little bit of a feel to it. But yeah, so that's our new updated Swords and Stones game logo. Also, what I've done is I've gone through and kind of reorganized the game guide itself, not to a drastic appeal, but I've added a few things, taken away a few things. One of the things I did add, and something that you'll see in zine-size games as well, especially things like Pirate Borg and stuff like that, on the inside front cover are quick reference tables. So I've added that here as well. So now you don't really even need a game screen, a DM screen. Game host screen, we would call it, because we use the term game host instead of dungeon master or game master. So here, if we have a quick look at it, you can see in here that you have your reaction, your combat turn steps. So you have reaction, advantage, roll a combat dice, calculate your results, damage, determine, or continue to disengage. You also have here's your reaction table. And you also have your difficulty challenge by level reference. So the way we do combat and the way we do most dice rolls in Swords and Stones, pretty much all of them, is by DC, by difficulty challenge. So I've pretty much eliminated the stat blocks for monsters because for a monster, basically a PC has to roll their difficulty challenge for their level in order to hit or to defend themselves against the monster. And same with the monsters, same thing. It just makes the combat go a lot faster. And as you go up higher in level, the difficulty challenge gets higher. And I know that sounds kind of opposite. You think it would get easier because you're getting better, but the creatures that you're facing are also becoming stronger. Okay, so they're more skilled. They have more hit points. But it also goes without saying that you would be more skilled and more experienced. So the monster's DC also goes up. So for them to hit the characters, it also gets harder as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. You have your PC weapons. So I have just basically 8 basic weapons in this system. You can throw whatever you want in there. doesn't really matter. This is pretty much wide open. So this is your standard damage. Daggers 1 to 4, arrows 1 to 6, sword 1 to 8. And then they go up by level. So again, we're also adding a little bit of depth with regards to damage. So your difficulty challenge goes up, so it's harder for you to hit a monster when you're up at higher levels because basically their armor class, if you could say, is stronger and their skill is stronger, so they could deflect. But also, because they have higher hit points, you will be able to inflict more damage. So, for instance, at the first 2 levels, just your standard damage for their weapons. Going up for levels 3 and 4, you add a d6. Levels 5 and 6, you add 2d6. 7 and 8, 3d6, and 9 and 10, 4d6. So, at levels 9 and 10, monsters' hit points are going to be way up there. Your hit points are going to be way up there. So, for a touch of balance, which really is a lousy word to say, but a touch of balance, this gives you the opportunity to deal more damage as well. The monsters' level damage die go up as well, so they have the opportunity to deal more damage. So, death is very real in this game for characters. It's very, very on edge as far as combat is concerned. We roll advantage, which is basically attack or defend, every single turn. So if you're in the middle of combat, the PC rolls a d6. If you get 1 to 3, you get to attack. If you roll 4 to 6, you're on the defense. So at the early level, at pretty much any level really, if you hit defense every single turn, you could be dead at the early levels in a matter of 2 to 3 turns. The higher levels maybe 4 or 5 turns. But the threat and the stress of possibly dying in combat is there, and it's always there. So it tries to convince players to move on from combat, to think of doing other things. Try not to be a murder hobo and just jump in there and start swinging your sword, because you could die pretty easily. And we'll get into combat damage and that sort of thing on the next page when we talk about critical hits. So for here, this is basically melee weapons and range weapons. We also have magic in this system by using spellstones. So dealing spellstone damage is more or less similar. It also goes up. So the standard would be your level 1 and 2 is your intelligence plus 1d4. So if you successfully activate a spellstone and you blast, say, a fireball or something like that at a creature, the damage you roll is 1d4 and you add your intelligence modifier, so for a maximum of 10. And then you can go up. So at level 5 and 6, or sorry, level 3 and 4, you go up by adding an extra d6. So now you have a maximum of 16. So as you can see, it'll get higher and higher and higher. So same thing for magic. Damage deductions. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about armor class. Your armor class in this system is a modifier. If you are on the defense, when you roll your advantage die, your d6, and you roll 4, 5, or 6, you're on the defense. So we roll 2 d20s, opposing d20s. One is for the attacking, either the monster or the PC, and the other one's for the defending, either monster or PC. So in this case, if you're the PC and you're defending, we roll the 2 d20s. You take your armor class modifier, which is your constitution modifier plus your armor modifier. So if you have chainmail, it could be like a +2. Say your constitution was a 4, when you rolled it. You add the +2, that's 6. And then at the beginning levels, you either wear a helmet or you have a shield. Later on, you can have both. So let's say you have a shield. So that's +1. So 4, 6, 7 is your armor class. So when you roll, you're on the defense and you roll your d20, level 1 and 2, you need a 10 or better. Now, your armor class is 7, so you actually only need 3 to either partially deflect an attack or survive the attack altogether. So let's say you make your defense roll. So you added that up and you got a 10. Okay. The monster rolls, they need a 12 to hit you, and they got a 13. So they still hit you. But because you got 10, you deduct 1 point off of the damage that they roll. So let's say they roll their d6 of damage and they only roll 3. So you only take 2 points damage. Now, if they had only rolled a 1, you would take no damage, meaning you deflected that attack altogether. So that's kind of how that works. That's armor class in a nutshell. And that's kind of explained down here as well. Also on here we have dungeon room description. So for the game host, I encourage game hosts to be descriptive and create some ambiances and some atmosphere for when characters are especially exploring dungeons, but also when you're in areas open fields, cityscapes, or what have you. So I have a basic, and you'll see it. There's a table further down in the guide where when you're building your encounters, you're building your campaign, you can build the rooms, the dungeon rooms, and your areas, and put in these descriptors. So you have smell when you're approaching a room. We'll use dungeons, of course, because that's the most obvious. But when you're approaching a room, this is what you might smell. Okay, you come to, maybe the door is open, you walk up to the doorway, and this is the smell that hits you when you approach. The air quality, is it, is the air really heavy feeling? Is it really wet? Is it misty, or is it dry, or is it clear? Those sort of things. And what you'll find later on, we'll have dungeon descriptors where you can actually randomly roll as you're building your rooms or as you're playing. Yeah, same thing. And then you also have descriptors. So on that sheet, on that point by point sheet, I have a space where you can put in 3 descriptors. You can use more if you'd like, but I put in 3 descriptors to help you describe the look and feel of the room. So there's maybe broken bones laying around. There's maybe piles of dung. There's chunks of fur. There's dry blood on the walls. Things like that. The next thing is gear. So you also have the option to roll for 3 items that the party may run across in that room that might either be useful or they could use, or give them an idea of what's going on in the room, that sort of thing. Weapons as well. You can randomly roll to see if the characters find a weapon. So when I play the game, when I'm hosting the game, for gear, weapons, spell stones, and that sort of thing, I roll a d6, and on a 1, they find magic stones, and then we roll on the stones table. On a 6, they find possibly gear. But the other thing you could do is on a 1, they find spell stones. Okay, if they roll any other number, then it's one of the tables in the dungeon descriptors room. So if they roll a 6, let's say, let's do it this way. If they roll a 1, it's spell stones or heal stones or one of the magic stones. If they roll a 6, then it's gear. You go to the gear page and you roll a d6 again, because there are 6 tables, 6 or 8 tables or something like that. And then you figure out what they might be finding. And then the next thing you can add onto your list is ambite. I basically have on here roll 1d12 for the number of ambite nuggets they find. Ambite is the local gemstone, and it is used for trade. It is used for making all kinds of things, like weapons and jewelry and that sort of thing. But it's an extremely hard stone, so it's very hard to manipulate. Humans have the innate ability in this world to change ambite to gold just by touching it. Not always, but you have to roll on your intelligence and see if that actually works. And if that does, then it changes it to gold. Now it becomes a softer metal, and you can manipulate it and make all kinds of other things. But it's not really a currency. It can be used for trade, for making jewelry and weapons and goblets and plates and what have you. But it's not really used as currency. So for us, for ambite, when we talk about experience points, when you find ambite gems, whoever finds the gems, I give out basically 10 experience points per gem. Spell stones. Spell stones in this system, that's our magic system. So it's another aspect of the search and survive. It entices the exploration factor, because magic is not innate in this world. Magic is not learned. Magic is just stumbled upon. So you find these spellstones. Humans are the only ones that can activate and use the magic. There are some locals like the Arafu, my version of an elf, that have innate magic ability somewhat. They can manipulate the elements. They have natural healing, where after combat, if they don't die, they'll start to accumulate their hit points back. But spell stones are basically stones that the characters can stumble upon by searching, and they'll learn after a while that it's probably a good idea to keep doing that, because they help when they're in danger, when they're in the aspects of being chased by a bunch of Draku, which is our Dakru, I should say, which is our orcs. And if they rely on just their weapons, they may not survive. So, as well as healing. Okay, there are no major recovery of hit points by finding a cleric or doing a long rest. Don't do any of that crap. It's not crap, sorry. Don't do any of that stuff. So what we have is also heal stones. They have to find those. Okay, and heal stones, you would roll on your wisdom to try to activate. And if you get it, you add your wisdom modifier plus a d4, and that gives you the amount of hit points you can get back or you're giving to somebody else. You can also roll on the random tables for monster for each room and traps, etc. So this is basically just a list of things where you can create bullet points on the sheet that I've included in here, a sample of, where you can describe your rooms and flesh them out. Okay, moving on. So on the next page on the inside of the front cover, we have a few more references. We have the critical roles for player characters. So we'll briefly run through that. So on an attack, you hit a natural 20. In this system, a PC rolling a natural 20 on an attack instantly kills the creature it's fighting. And as I explained before with armor class and with how we roll advantage and attack defend, if let's say you're on your third turn and you've been on the defense twice, your hit points are down 2/3. You've only got maybe 3 or 4 hit points left. You're on the verge of dying. But for some reason, because you have that murder hobo instinct, you decide, I'm going to keep fighting. And you roll your advantage and you're on attack this time. You roll a 1, 2, or a 3. So, yes, okay, roll your d20. Let's see if I can get out of this. And boom, you hit a nat 20. Instantly kill that creature. So you were on the verge of dying and you lucked out and you got in a killing blow. So that's why I do that, because it's some would say that this is again another little sampling of balance, quote unquote, but it's giving players the hope that they could survive an attack, and again training them not to think about combat all the time because the risk is very, very high. A natural 1, so a critical fail for player characters. So obviously that's not a hit. And what you would do then is roll a d6 for self-inflicted damage. As well, the monster you're fighting instantly gets to roll a d4 counterattack damage. So for a maximum of 10 points of damage. So in that instant right there, because you failed your attack miserably, you could die because you hurt yourself and the monster counterattacked and hit you back. So again, high risk, okay, but also high reward. On the defense, you roll a natural 20. Doesn't matter what the monster rolls, unless it's a natural 20 itself, and they kind of cancel each other out. But a natural 20 means you have completely defended yourself and deflected the blow. You take no damage. Easy peasy. You also get to roll a 1d4 damage counter a strike. Okay. Natural 1 on defense, total fail. You take whatever damage that monster rolls. Okay, so if they let your third level and that monster's rolling 2d6, you have no choice. There's no deductions. Your armor class, it doesn't matter because you rolled a natural 1, so it doesn't matter what you roll, what your armor class is. You don't add it at this point. So again, the risk of death is right there. Critical rolls for monsters. A natural 20 on an attack, that monster gets to inflict their full damage that they roll, even if your player character makes their defense. So if your player character rolls and, oh yes, I got my armor class, I'm going to deduct, but the monster rolls a nat 20, cancels that right out. The monster is going to roll their damage. You just take whatever it is. On a natural fail, very similar to the PCs, monster will roll a d6 for self-inflicted damage, and the PC gets the instant counter of 1d4 damage. Defense for the monster on a natural 20. Instantly deflected the attack, very similar to the PC. They take no damage and they gain advantage next turn. So they don't get a counter, but they gain advantage. So in that turn, you didn't inflict any damage on the monster, and the next turn is theirs. They instantly gain the advantage, so they get to attack. Okay. Defense, natural 1, critical fail. They take the full damage that the player character rolls. So they're very similar in approach. Here we're talking about Ambite, the local gemstones, which we kind of went over a little bit. Here, using spellstones, we touched upon it. Basically, when a character finds a spellstone, they don't automatically know what it is, what that spell is. They have to figure that out. So what they do is they attune, kind of like D&D where you're going to attune to a magical helmet or a weapon. But in this, you would attune to the spellstone. So you roll your d20. If you're a level 1, your DC, your difficulty challenge is 10, so you have to do 10 or better. You roll your d20, you get a 6. Okay, your intelligence is also a 6. Boom, you got 12. You've attuned to that spellstone. Piece of cake, cool. So then what we do is we go to the spellstones list where I have 6 tables and we roll randomly to see what spell it is. They're not set. They're not set for every stone that you find. It's random. So you could find 6 spell stones. They could all 6 of them you could roll randomly and get the exact same spell, which is fine. I mean, you can get some pretty cool stuff. And then when you go to use the spell stone, it's very similar. Again, you roll your d20, apply it towards the difficulty challenge or DC of your level, add your intelligence modifier, and that's your success or fail. And if it's a success, then you roll your damage, which is a 1d4, adding your intelligence modifier again. So it's kind of based all on these modifiers, and that's basically your skills. Heal stones, same idea. Heal stones, you don't have to attune to them. Heal stones, you just automatically they're automatically attuned to the character when they find them, so that you just have to roll 1d4, add your wisdom, and that allows you to use the stone. So I guess that's an attune of sorts. And then you roll your d20 and you add your wisdom, not the 1d4. Let's back up a little bit. So you roll a d20 against the DC, add your wisdom, and there's your attune. And then you've successfully activated the heal stone, and now you roll a d4 and add your wisdom, and that's the hit point. So a maximum of 10 hit points, depending on what your wisdom modifier is. So when we're investigating rooms, so we'll move on to the table down here under Magic of the Stones, 1d6 to determine the type of stone. So for the game host, when your characters are finding stones, so they're in a room, they roll a d6 to see if they find something, they roll a 1. Okay, 1 means, okay, they've rolled and they found some stones. So then you come to this table, you roll that d6 again, and it tells you what type of stone that they could find. And these are our 6 basic stone types. So you have a spell stones, you have your heal stones, you have a tracking stone, which is kind of like ranger skills in Dungeons and Dragons. You have a stone of wonder. Now this one is this is one of the uber random ones. So it's got 6 definitions of if you get the stone of wonder and then you go to use it, you have to roll another d6 to figure out what it does. So you never know. One of the options, let's say you roll your d6 and you get a 6 when you're using the stone of wonder, that selection sends you back home. Poof, your character is gone, back to where you came from when you brought over to Ambien through the veil. Then you have Stone of Possession, kind of obvious. You can use it to possess either another character or another monster. You can even use it to possess items, innate items. Stone of Speaking, again, something kind of obvious. It has another subtable where you can roll on, and you have a language to choose from. So because when humans come here, you don't have a common tongue. There's no common tongue on Ambien. If you're lucky, you find a stone of speaking, or you maybe find a potion of speaking, and you'll be able to converse with the locals, which is kind of handy. Specialty skills. Specialty skills are kind of like your skill stats in some other games where you have feats. In this, it's not really. Basically, at level 4, your character can choose a special skill, or you can roll randomly on here. So there's 12 specialty skills. So you roll a d12. Things like spell memorization. So at level 4, you can memorize up to 4 spells a day. So now your spell stones, you can hang on to them and use them more than once, twice a day, and you can have 4 different spells. Before that, up to from levels 1 to 3, once you use a spell stone, poof, it's done. Same with heal stones, poof, they're done. The other thing with a heal stone, though, is that if you fail to use it, it's not just done. You can put it back in your pocket. With a spell stone, if you fail to activate and to attune to it, and you go to use it, let's say you do attune to it and you go to use it, and you fail, then that spell stone turns gray, and it's just a rock. But with spell memorization at levels 4, you can use up to 4 stones a day. And you can use the same ones every day, or if let's say you've got 10 of them, you can swap them out, but you have to do that at the beginning of your game day or your session day, and let the game host know. At level 6, it's 6 of them. At 8, it's 8 of them, and at level 10, you have 10 spell stones you can use every day. But you can use them twice, but you have to have a 2-hour interval in between. The second option is heal stones, retaining heal stones. So same idea. You can, once you've used a heal stone up to level 3, then it's just done. So with the heal stones, the same idea. You can retain your healing stones daily. 4th level, you can have 4 heal stones. So even once you use it, you can use it again. So you can use them twice a day with 2-hour intervals. And then at 6th level, you have 6 stones. At 8, you have 8 stones, etc. So you can actually help out your whole party and get 4 or 5 members of your party, and you've got the opportunity to keep them going. And this is because our characters are classless. Everybody can do it. It's not folded into one archetype where only a cleric can do it or only a magic user can use spellstones. Other skills, you have ambidextrous. You use 2 weapons at once, and you have full damage with one weapon and partial damage with the other. Counter strike. So now instead of only having the opportunity to counter strike if you roll a d20 or if the character rolls a natural one, now you can state at the beginning of the combat round, I want to use my counter strike ability, and you have the option to use that, and you get to roll that d4 extra damage. Languages. So here's another option for learning languages. So if you pick this skill, you can also roll on a subtable to pick a language for one of the locals that you'll be able to use and converse with them. You have hand-to-hand combat. Oh, sorry, missed one. Stealth. So this adds a bonus to your dexterity so that you can be a lot quieter, a lot sneakier, a little bit of thieving skill kind of thing, or rogue if you're a more modern version of D&D. Hand-to-hand combat, we have subtables where you can, in the midst of combat, you just roll on what strike it is that you're throwing. Damage-wise, it's all d6 damage. It's nothing too special, but it's still an extra skill to have so that you have the ability to strike and land your strikes. Diplomat, you can talk your way out of situations. Bullseye, which is nice because if you're using a ranged weapon, this allows you to actually hit your target each time. So you don't have to worry about your 2 hit. You just roll and hit your target, roll your damage, and see if the creature rolls their defense and takes less damage. Multiplicity, you can fire multiple times in one turn. Not just one arrow, but I think it's up to 4 arrows. Bull Rush, kind of like a rage in D&D where you can rush your opponent and create extra damage. Leap. You can leap up to 20 feet, just like a frog. Take a big spring, leap up over creatures, over objects, and down on top of creatures. Just kind of fun stuff. And again, it's up to the players and the game host to be as creative as you want to be with all of these. Modify them, add whatever you want, take away whatever you want, no big deal. The other thing we have on this page is the random monster table. So as you're going through dungeons, for example, and you want to roll your random monsters, a 1 or a 6. If you get 1 or a 6, then you get an encounter. And if it's a monster, then you roll it on this table to see what it is. All right, so as you can see over on the left-hand side here, I do have this version of the game, the PDF, hyperlinked. But we're going to go page by page just to try to get through it. And you can see kind of the whole thing. So this is obviously the generic information about me, the author. I did 99% of the art in here as well, other than getting my logo revamped by ChatGPT. Concept and design was mine. I come from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. I learned very basic gameplay back then. I didn't really get into the crunch of the rules as much. And even now, when I came back to the hobby in 2020, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, it's even crunchier now, and it's very. I'm talking about D&D specifically. It's very over the top superhero kind of play. Not what I really liked. So I just wanted to I want to play a game that's simple enough for me to understand. Combat is quick, and the focus is on exploration and survival, and kind of bringing me back to the quote-unquote OSR feel of a game. Inspirations for my game after doing a bunch of studying. Obviously, my original introduction is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons by Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, and Tom Mulvey, all those wonderful creators. Knave by Ben Milton was a huge inspiration with a lot of random tables and the classless characters. Also with Index Card RPG, same idea by Runehammer. And just the overall feel by Kelsey Dion and Shadow Dark, very much inspirational, especially with regards to using torches. I think Kelsey in Kelsey's game, she runs torches in real time, so we do that as well. So torches in our game, if I know I'm going to play a 2 or a 4 hour session, I'll do 1 hour torches. Otherwise, if I know I'm down to only 2 hour sessions, which we've been doing lately, then your torch lasts for that session time. But you do have to keep track because then you're going to be in the dark, and there's no night vision in this game at all. So again, very taken by a page out of Shadow Dark. And then of course you go through the artwork and the copyright and all that wonderful stuff. All right, so here's the content page in our table of contents. So the objective of our game is to offer you, as either a game host or a player, an alternative tabletop role-playing game guide to the mainstream or most popular role-play game. So you can play this on its own, or you can add all or parts of this to your current game, and basically like homegrown rules or homebrewed rules. Compatibility, again, same idea. Swords and Stones is designed to stand alone or be integrated, like I just said. Mechanics, the game mechanics are similar but different. So you are rolling. You have your standard dice. You do. It is a D20 roll high game. Everything's based off of difficulty challenges. Okay, so there's no looking at like in AD&D. There's no rolling and finding out what your armor class is, and then having to look on a table to see whether or not you hit this creature based on their armor class. I wanted to speed things up, so it's just based off of a difficulty challenge per level. The game layout is basically, as it was mentioned already, this can be enhanced with any data from any role-playing game of your choice. Or you can use the information here on its own or take it and add it to your game or vice versa. The table of content. So all of this in here, this is all hyperlinked as well. So if you get the PDF, you download the PDF from my itch.io page. There's two versions. There's the standard version and then there's a hyperlinked version. And so it just makes it quick to run through. But we're going to go page to page. So terms, we'll run through quickly. A lot of these terms for people that are veteran role-play game players and game hosts, dungeon masters, game masters, whatever you want to call it, you'll be familiar. We don't, like I mentioned before, we don't use the term dungeon master or game master or referee. We call them the game host. And basically what that is, this is the person that is hosting the game. Whether this is the person that is setting the stage of the game, hosting it in their home, and introducing all the scenarios and the ambiance and the atmosphere of the game. So no different than being a dungeon master. I just wanted to kind of spin it on its head and give it a little different feel. Players, obviously, these are the cool people that want to play the game with the game host. They're the ones that want to sit down at your table and try to survive. They're also the ones that your game host is going to try to kill off. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe. Player characters, those are the ones the game host is going to focus on trying to get rid of, but not. So, again, very similar to any other tabletop role-playing game as far as terms. Your dice, your math rocks, we use the basic dice, your D20, your D12, your D10, your D8, your D6, and your D4. Very similar, and they're rolled for all sorts of particular things. We talked earlier about using the D4 for attuning to spellstones, as well as rolling the damage on spellstones, as well as using it as a counter strike damage. D6 is our standard dice for monster damage. It's also the add-on die for extra damage for characters as you level up. And then you have your D8s and your D10s, and that's for rolling on different things. So your non-player characters, or in this game mostly monsters, those are the ones that are controlled by the game host. Those are the ones that you throw at your players and your player characters to see if they will survive the night. All right, hit points. Very standard, the same as not any other, but a lot, I'd say most other D20 games. This is the number of hits your body can take. It's basically how your body is made, how many wounds you can survive before you die. With regards to our game, you player characters hit 0 hit points, you are unconscious. Anything below 0, even -1, and you're dead. No recoveries, there's no resurrection spells, there's no death saves like you would do in the modern version. So you want to think about that again. Try to convince players to play a little smart, a little less murder hobo, and try to keep their characters going so they can build up a history. Character backstories aren't done ahead of time in this game. Backstories are built via playing the game, and that's how it works. Starting hit points, start all PCs at 10 hit points, monsters at 12, and they go up by 1d6 every round, so there's no need to roll. If you get 1,000 experience points per level, so you start at 1,000 for level 1, you get another 1,000. You're at level 2, you just add another 6 hit points to your total. So level 1 you start at 10 hit points. Level 2 you're at 16. Level 3 you're at 22. It's pretty simple. Armor class, we kind of ran over that. It's a modifier now for defense rolls that I use. Instead of just being a number, you have to look up on a table to see whether or not you've been hit. Difficulty challenge, that is the basic premise of the combat mechanic and pretty much any other mechanic in this game. You also have, and I call that the CDC, or combat difficulty challenge. And we also have a TDC, which is a task difficulty challenge. And with that, that's very fluid. Game hosts can decide what kind of a difficulty challenge they want to apply to a character when he's trying to accomplish a specific task. Want to scale a wall, cross a log on a ravine, that sort of thing. As long as that's something extra that is over and above a person's innate abilities. Okay, you can definitely open a door with your hand, but if you want to crash through that door and slam your body into it, that's over and above. So you would roll on a task difficulty challenge. Experience points, very, very simple, very fluid as well. You can just hand those out however you feel is appropriate. I like handing out experience points for gameplay, for creativity, for teamwork, as well as, like I mentioned before, Ambite is basically 10 experience points per gem, and then you can apply that to pretty much anything. And you gain 1,000 experience points, you go up a level. So I hand out experience points every session. I hand out, if people level up, we do that every session. I don't wait till the end of a game campaign. I don't wait till the end of a certain scene in a game campaign. I want my characters to feel like they're being accomplished and moving forward. Okay, game roles. Your role as a game host. Portion of your role is to create the atmosphere, create fun, comfortable atmosphere, create the ambiance of the game, the scenarios, and that sort of thing. Part of your responsibility is coming up with a place to play, maybe bringing some of the tools, but that's everyone's responsibility. Players too. Players, these people are the ones that decide, yeah, they want to try your Swords and Stones game. They want to sit down and play, or they want to play online or what have you. But they bring the atmosphere as far as the meat and potatoes to the game. The characters are the ones that create the game themselves. So the way that I play this game is very similar to point-to-point kind of adventures. So I have adventures set up where I have specific things that are in the adventure that I would like to see the characters run into. But they have the option to go their own way. So it's kind of a one-track railroad. So they can jump off the train at any time they want. And when they do that, depending on the situation, on what their choices are, or what's going on at the time, I've got a whole binder full of extra encounters I can just throw in there. Or you can grab another adventure module from a different game or what have you that you've downloaded online and use that as a side quest or just an encounter scenario. So I run it that way. It's whatever they decide to do. I give them game hooks. I have a point-to-point setup where they kind of have an overall scenario of what they're trying to accomplish. But if they decide to go left instead of right, then I have a binder full of encounters and scenarios that I can throw in there and tie it into the overall story, hopefully. Player characters, obviously, these are your avatars that you're playing in the game. And again, we don't do 4 pages of backstory like you would do in some games. We build your story as you go through this because, as we'll get into later, characters are brought to Ambien from Earthrealm, this Earth, at any time throughout Earth history. And then they're brought to Ambien. Ambien is another parallel universe which is being run by some sort of an overlord creature of some sort. Almost like your characters are being brought into a tabletop role-playing game, because when you're in Ambien, things can happen just out of the blue. Creatures show up from nowhere. There are certain areas, like there's the grasslands, there's the mountain areas, there's the forested areas, the jungle areas, swamps. There's the Forbidden Zone, Darmandu. There's the Down Under, which is kind of like the Underdark in D&D. But for the most part, because of how this ambient is set up, and there's some overlord being or entity of some sort that has snatched you from Earthrealm and brought you here, anything can happen at any given time. All right, creating your adventurer. This is a breakdown of how to roll up your character, and it's pretty quick. It should take you no more than 5 to 10 minutes, 10 at the most. You take 6d6. If you have six six-sided dice, you roll them once. You take those numbers, write them down on a piece of paper. You look at your character sheet and you decide where you want to put those numbers. I tend to encourage players to put their highest roll in their constitution, because that gets added to your armor that you're going to wear, plus your shield or helmet, to give you your armor class. So that, that armor class or defense roll is very important, so that you survive. And then after that, you can put your next highest roll into your strength if you want to be a fighter style character, or you can put it into your dexterity if you want to be like a ranger style. We use range weapons or hand-to-hand combat, or you want to be dexterous, you want to be like a rogue, you want to be able to move quick, or you can put your higher roll into your intelligence. If you want to be able to use lots of spell stones and be able to attune to them better, put your higher roll in your intelligence, and that also gives you a higher chance of success of using and higher damage. Or if you also want to be a healer and be the kind of quote-unquote cleric of the group, then put it in your wisdom. And then of course you have your constitution and you have your charisma. And as you can tell, it really doesn't matter to the game host where you put these, because there's no archetypes. Everything's classless. So you decide, as you put these roles into your character sheet, how you want to focus your character at the beginning anyways. That can change later on. So this gives you a breakdown really quick of what you're rolling the dice for, which is kind of how I explained it, how it works, where you put all these are just modifiers. And then what are the steps? So you roll your 6 dice, take the individual rolls, write them down on a piece of paper, go through your results, and decide which roll will go to which modifier, and then you place those in those modifiers, and that's the beginning of your character. And then I try to say in here also that when you're deciding on what number to put in, what modifier, think a bit on how you would like to play your character, which we just kind of talked about. Okay, so moving on. Armor class. Now we've kind of talked about armor class a little bit already. Basically, armor class is a defense modifier. So when you're in the middle of combat and it's your turn, we roll advantage or attack defense every turn, because combat is chaotic. You will not always know if you're going to take a swing, or if you need to use your shield, or if you need to duck and get out of the way. So we roll that d6 every turn. And now, if again, like I mentioned earlier, if you're stuck on defense, each turn your character, especially at the early levels, could die off quickly. So it entices you to be more strategic, to be more of a thinker, and a little less murder hobo. Okay, so you can go through and you can kind of read through this as to how armor class works and how it, like I mentioned, how you deduct a point or so off of your attacker's damage roll if you're successful at defending yourself. All right, and here we go through the modifiers and kind of give you a brief idea of what they're for. We already talked about hit points, that you get to 0, you're unconscious, you go below 0. This is for player characters, and then you're dead. When you're unconscious, character, you'd wait till the next day to be revived, or in gameplay. It's very fluid. Game host can decide. You can wait certain amount of rounds. Other characters that have heal stones can use them on you to bring you back, that sort of thing. For monsters, they hit 0, they're done. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Next we have random PC table. So now this is as you're going through, once you've got your modifiers in place, you kind of have an idea how you want to play your character. You've come up with a name, you've figured out the armor class. Every character gets a basic backpack, which you'll see in here in a second. So you have a bunch of gear to start with, but then you also have 10 optional gear slots that you can fill as you go along and find stuff. But here now, if you want to get into a little bit of detail about your character, you can roll randomly, or you can just come up with it on your own. But rolling random is kind of fun. So you can roll on how the height of your character, the weight, what your physique is like. You're brawny, athletic, you're flabby, or you're scrawny, or what have you. You have a dad bod, you're tall, short. Your eye color, your hair color, unless you roll a 1, then you're just bald. and then your skin color. So it just kind of it adds a little bit of flavor to it. It's always fun to do random rolls because it's nice to be surprised. And here is your basic backpack. So with a basic backpack, you have a small iron box, a map case and utensils, a flask, 3 flasks of oil, 20-foot rope, 3 large sacks, 12 door spikes, 5 torches, a tinderbox and flint for lighting those torches, and 2 blankets. So again, things you have to track. 5 torches. We do real time for torches, so if it's a 2 hour session, that torch will last that 2 hours and then be done. Or if you want to be even a little more narrow, you can run them at 1 hour, and then the torch will be out, and all of a sudden, oh gosh, it's getting dark in here. Door spikes. You can be using those door spikes to block doorways to keep critters from chasing you, but you got to track them. If you use blankets, if you use your large sacks, also track what's in them. We have a, pardon me, another thing you can find on my itch page is the player journal. And in the player journal, you will have the character sheet. You'll have the basic breakdown of gameplay on the inside cover. And then you'll have a little bit of place to put your backstory. And then you have a larger page for the backpack where you can track all your spell stones and heal stones and any optional stones. And you'll be able to check off on there when you use door spikes and torches and that sort of thing. Then there's the optional gear sets. So these are little gear sets that I put together, again, based off of books like Knave, Shadow Dark, that sort of thing. That if you want to roll on these optional gear sets, if you take one of them, you take the whole thing. So the first one, for instance, is a torch, some beef jerky, 2 apples, a smoke pipe, and 20 feet of rope. Pretty generic. The second one is a pickaxe, a hammer, some lantern, oil and flint, compass, and an air bladder. So that's kind of like an adventurer's list. The third one is a sealskin coat, fire pot, fur mitts, fur boots, snow mask, and snowshoes. So that's for winter adventuring. So some of them are very themed. But if you do decide to roll on this list, or you choose one, you take the whole thing and add those to your gear slots. And as you go along and play, you can definitely drop items and that sort of thing. All right, and moving along again for outfitting your character, rolling on the type of armor. Now, I encourage players to roll randomly for armor because I don't want everybody wearing plate mail. I mean, sure, you could be a bunch of knights that have shown up here, but I prefer that you roll randomly. And this gives you your armor class modifier to add to your constitution, as well as a helmet or a shield to come up with your armor class. And then roll for weapons. Roll 2 times. I like players to have at least 2 weapons to choose from. It just makes it more fun. And then it has the damage listed here as well. Specialty skills. Now we talked a little bit about this on the for the inside cover on the small tables, the quick reference tables. Here's a little breakdown of what each of them do. I talked a bit about the spells and the healing stones where you can use them multiple times. The Stone of Wonder, which is, I'm thinking stone specialty skills. So there's other things in here like multiplicity, where you can fire up to 4 shots with your ranged weapon in 1 turn. Hand-to-hand combat. Here's the table. You roll a d12 to determine what strike you executed. Your damage is a 1d4 plus your strength modifier. So you could have up to 10 points of damage with 1 punch. So it's pretty variable. The 12th option is a combo where you can do up to 4 strikes. So you roll a d12 4 times, and each one of those you can do 1d4 plus your strength modifier. Pretty crazy. The magic of the stones. Here's our stone list. Now, this is kind of what I was getting to. So we'd roll randomly to try to determine what stone you find. So the Stone of Wonder. This one here has a random list that you have to choose from, 1 through 6, to see what that magic stone does. And the 6th option is it sends the PC back through the veil to their original Earth, time, and place. So have another character ready. And then away you go. You have Stone of Speaking, a tracking stone for ranger kind of skills. Obviously your spell stone, your healing stone are the 2 main ones. A possession stone. Yeah, and if you want to come up with something else, if you have ideas for different types of magic stones, do it. Just do it. And now we get into the description. Okay, so now we roll on the random tables to figure out what spell. If you've attuned to your spell stone, you need to know what spell it is. So you roll on the tables. There are 6 tables, and each table has 10 options. So you roll a d6 and you roll a d10. Let's say you rolled a 2 and a 5. So you go to spell group 2, and spell number 5 is locate an object. And you do that every time you attune and identify a stone, because it's not set. It's not guaranteed like a scroll. It's random, and that keeps it fun. It keeps it exciting, keeps it interesting. And then we move into the details for the spells. They're all fairly similar spell tropes as opposed to basic Dungeons and Dragons. Some of them are a little different. Like I have Blood Boil on one of these, and that's basically a spell that you use to create the blood in the monster or the NPC to create their blood to boil so that they basically are in a lot of pain. Here's a sample of gameplay. So we break down what the game host would say and how they would reply based on what the characters roll and what they decide to do. And then we get into combat. And here's the combat steps. So you roll reaction. And now a lot of games, you kind of wonder, why would you roll reaction every single time? Well, because not every creature is just automatically wanting to turn and attack you. Even though, based on the history of the games, especially the OG game, creatures like orcs, goblins, trolls, ogres, yeah, they're technically nasty, and they want to eat you. Okay, but in this game, I like to make that an option, make that random option. So, your characters around a bend into an open field, and there's a party of Dakru sitting there. Party of Dakru. Dakru is our orc. Roll reaction. Do the orcs get surprised? Or do the Dakru get surprised? Are they aggressive because of that surprise, or don't they even notice you? Maybe they just sit there. They don't realize you're there. So that just adds a little bit of extra meat to the game. Then you roll your advantage. So if combat ensues, you have to roll advantage for attack or defend every turn. Then you do the combat determination, rolling the 2d20s to see what the die rolls are based off the DC and your character sheet, etc. Then you roll damage if there's damage. One thing I added to this game this time is flanking. If your party of three, you're fighting three creatures, one of those creatures dies, that player character is now free to help one of the other characters. That player character can try to flank that monster. So you would roll reaction to see if that is successful. And if it is, then what I do is I give that character a free attack roll. So they just roll their d20 and see if they hit. And if they do, then they roll their damage. But I also roll the defense for the monster. Okay? So that gives the monster a chance to not take as much damage as you would if they just didn't notice it. So that's kind of how I run flanking. Then we break down the combat DC and the task DC, which I pretty much talked about previously as they go up higher every couple levels. Combat turns, we kind of went through that a little bit, and here's an example of combat, how that breaks down. Damage, we talked about that a bit as well. For player characters, your levels 1 and 2 is just your standard weapon damage. For levels 3 and 4, it's your standard damage plus 1d6. 5 and 6, you go up to 2d6. 7 and 8, 3d6. 9 and 10, 46. Very similar with using spell stones as well. You add those d6s to each level as you go up. And that's listed here. And then monster damage is pretty straightforward. It's just 1d6 for level 1 and 2. Then it's 2 for 3 and 4, 3 for 5 and 6, 4 for 7 and 8, and 5d6 for levels 9 and 10. So at that level, your characters are going to have lots of hit points. Monsters are going to have lots of hit points. So the monsters make one roll. They could roll 30 hit points of damage in one roll. So it can get dangerous. All right, and now we have a little introduction. This is Welcome to Ambient. So let us set the stage with a trip through the Vale. So this gives you a little bit of atmosphere as to how, and kind of sets the feel of the game for your character, for your players, as to what's going on and what do you mean my character gets pulled from Earth and brought here. So in a nutshell, basically this goes through a little scenario saying that this character wakes up one day in their New York apartment, starts their day as they normally would. Then they they start to get dressed and they go to the washroom. They want to get themselves cleaned up, get ready for work. They walk into the bathroom. Their head starts to feel weird. They get all fuzzy. They black out. And they wake up. They wake up in the middle of a grass field. They're all of a sudden dressed in armor. They got a shield on their back. They're packing a weapon. they have no clue where they are. It's just a wide open field. There's a forest to the west. There's some hills and mountains north. And then all of a sudden they see some characters, some creatures running towards them. So that kind of, it's almost like a cinematic introduction. It just gives you, again, the ambiance or the feel or the depth of how characters are brought here and how you should, your players should react and play them as to being like, oh my God, where the heck am I? Why am I here? And you're kind of a little bit stunned trying to figure out what you're doing here, and maybe your objective is to try to get home. Now, if you find the overlord creature that is running this alternate universe, maybe you can kill them or convince them to send you home, or if you're lucky, get that Stone of Wonder. Where in the multiverse is Ambien? We kind of talked about that it's an alternate universe. There's different regions in Ambien, which we kind of briefly went through. The Down Under, which is like uh, our Underdark, as you would say in Dungeons and Dragons. We have Darmandu, which is our Forbidden Zone. That is where the Overlord usually is kept, but not always. And there's a lot of dark creatures. It's a very nasty area that characters, and I recommend characters being at least the mid-level, 4 to 5, or even higher before they hit that place, because you can throw whatever you want at them in that place. You can bring monsters in from any other game and make them just uber dangerous and make it very scary for them. Why not? Swords and Stones solo dungeon crawl. This is focused mostly on dungeon crawls, but you can apply these solo suggestions, the solo guide, to any type of solo play. Basically, I have game tools, what you'll need. You'll have get playing, and then basically a breakdown of how you would run the solo game and using the Swords and Stones rules. It's not really an oracle. I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean, you could roll 1d6 for a yes/no answer. That's kind of an oracle. And then, while you're running the solo game, combat is run the same. You run combat the same as you would in the normal Swords and Stones game. It's just here, it's just applied to your one character, or if you're running 2 or 3 characters. In a lot of solo games, I've done 2 or 3 characters playing solo. Gameplay scenario. So you can use these in your solo encounters, but you can also use these in your main game. What I've done is I've taken some of the playtest scenarios that we went through in our first playtest game, and I've broken them down into encounters or scenarios, however you want to describe it. So you can pop these into your game anywhere you want. You can use them as solo play or just an example for players. You can run some just quick test plays to see if they can get used to the mechanics and that sort of thing. So you got about 4 pages of gameplay scenarios. So there's lots of there to choose from. All right, decorating dungeons, and we kind of touched on this earlier with the quick reference tables at the beginning of the game guide. So what we're going to do in here is the point by point descriptions for rooms. Dungeon rooms mostly, for sure, but you can also use these for different areas of your game inside buildings and that sort of thing. So you have your smell, your air quality, your description. Again, pick 3 items to kind of give a brief description of what's going on in the room, give the feel of the room. Gear, things that they might find laying around they could use. Roll randomly to see if there's a weapon or ambite or spellstones, that sort of thing. If they roll a 1 or a 6 to see if they find those items. Monster, you can write down here the monster that they may or may not run into, again based on whether or not they hit a 1 or a 6. So it just gives you a quick reference, so you don't have to make pages of paragraph notes. You can just do quick reference in here, and then you can add things on as you go. So not a big deal. Makes it quick and easy. And here's the random table. So as you're building this, you go in here, and these are mostly percentile. So here you roll a D100 and you see what the room smells like, here what the air quality is, and here you can roll 3 times to get your bits and pieces of descriptions like slimy walls, rusty spikes laying around, that sort of thing. And then here, dungeon tables for your random gear. So let's say the characters are exploring a room and they roll a 6. So a 6 means, okay, come to this page and let's figure out what you find. So what do you have here? You have 6 different tables. So you roll another d6. Let's say they roll a 3. Wow, they found a weapon. So then you roll on this table to see what type of weapon. It's that simple. Or on the adventuring gear, they roll a 4 and you roll a d20. They found a water skin, so they can take that and they can fill it up with fresh water at a creek somewhere. So that kind of stuff. Just makes it fun, makes it random. Monsters and traps, same idea. Here, if they roll in, unless you have it written out ahead of time what monster you want to have in there or what kind of trap you want in there, you could roll randomly each room as well. So that just makes it fun. Bestiary. Okay, we get into the local inhabitants, the local creatures of Ambien, and just a brief breakdown of how you could or could not handle them. So there's two options. You can run straight off the DC, okay, or you can also add some stats, modifier stats to these creatures as well. Give them an armor class, give them some strength modifier, a dexterity modifier, you know, anything that you want really. If you want to go modifiers versus modifiers, okay, you're still running off the DC for 2 hit, but in this case, now the monster has to roll a modifier to hit based off, and you have different options that way as far as armor class. So it makes it more variable. Okay. Hit dice and hit points. All monsters start level 1 with 12 hit points, and you just keep adding 6 HP as you go up in level. Keep it simple. Don't make it too difficult. Magical damage. There's only a couple of the locals, the Erifu and the Durufu, who are able to use magic, innate magic they're born with. The Durufu are kind of like the Drow. They are the lords of the Down Under, and the Erifu are the elves of up top on the surface dwellers. And here you get a breakdown. So in here I give a breakdown of their basic physique and features, their cultural structure, some special abilities, magic if there is such a thing, the weapons and armor they typically use. You can do whatever the heck you want, but typically, and a known or rumored story. Again, this is just adding some depth. Everybody likes a little bit of lore. Everybody likes a little bit of intrigue. And then at the bottom, I have a little stat block. So if you want to use modifier versus modifier, there you go. You can do it that way or come up with your own. Again, it's very flexible. I want you to enjoy the game and play it the way you want to play it, and hopefully use some of the meat of this guide. So we go through, here's the Dakru, the Bakru. These are our bugbears. The Nakru are goblins. The Gokru are our lizard people. Takru are our cave bears. The Mokru are our trolls, down under denizens. The Chizaru, this is kind of a blend of a kobold and a dwarf. Because as I was going through this game, I realized, I don't really have any dwarf characters. If you want to add dwarf characters, go for it. But I basically came up with this critter. So I have a character, I have a class of being, or a culture of beings who love to mine for ambite, and they're diggers. But they're not dwarves, so they don't look human. They're kind of koboldish, just to be different. Torufu, these are the big nasties that basically are the foot soldiers in Darmandu, the Forbidden Zone. These guys are like basically were-tigers. The Dorufu, lords of the Down Under. These are our quote-unquote drow. Now, they are the ones that you will find in the Down Under, who basically are the big nasties that run the place. Koza, this is one of the bigger beasts. This is an ogre, but this is an uber ogre. This is an amped up ogre. These are fierce beasts. These are just look them in the eye and hope you don't die, basically. The Draku. Draku are the high guards of Darmandu. So you have the Torafu, which are the foot soldiers, the tigers, the were tigers, and you have these kind of like dragonkin, who are the high soldiers, or the high guards, basically the royal guards. The Sakru, this is my Sasquatch, this is my guardians of the forest. Neither good nor evil. Depends on how you want to play them. The Okaru, werewolves. These are nasty, 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 almost as nasty as the Koza. And basically, these guys were these were Erifu at one time, and were experimented on in Darmandu, in the Dark Zone, the Forbidden Zone, and this is what came out, and they've escaped. The Ornak, Northern Barbarians. This is a race of human beings, but a barbaric race of human beings. Now, whether they came that way, or whether they've evolved that way, or de-evolved, you could say, that's up to the game host. But this is a class of beings on this on this in this place, Ambien, that you might run into and be able to converse with, and maybe come up with some help to get you to survive or build a community. For your solo dungeon crawl, here are some dungeon rooms. Now, most of these dungeon rooms I borrowed from the Deck of Many Dungeons by Axebane. Got to give them all the credit. Um, but I've kind of manipulated and tweaked a lot of them to make them a little bit my own. So there's a few pages of these you can roll randomly while you're playing solo, or even while you're playing with a group. If you want to do random dungeon rooms, why not? We do a co-op version sometimes. Well, I'm not just the game host; everybody's a game host. So maybe I'll roll on the rooms. One person will roll on what type of monster. The other person will roll on whether or not there's treasure or what have you, and we play co-op. So there's no real game host. Here is a breakdown of the character sheet. So very, very atypical style character sheet. My own little flavor. Your player name, your character name. Here's your modifiers. So these are your stats: strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, and charisma. Again, they're just modifiers that you use to apply against your difficulty challenge. Constitution being a very important one because it builds your armor class. So down here you put in your armor type. If whether the first two armor types don't have a modifier, padded and banded, that's 0. So if you roll and you get one of those, you don't add any addition to the armor class modifier. And then you choose a shield and your helmet, and that gives you your armor class. Your PC level 1. Your experience points are 1,000. Your maximum hit points are 10, and obviously current hit points. That's the one you modify as you go. Your list for weapons. Now I only put 5 slots in here because really, how many more weapons can you use more than 5, even 2 or 3 at any given time? Here is another quick breakdown of the basic backpack, and here are your found items. So here's your slots. Now on the itch page, there is a fillable character sheet. If you play online and you want to use a digital version, I do have a fillable character sheet that I've placed up there as well that you can download. Then we can get into, here's a little brief breakdown of your character description, just the basic points: your eye color, your hair color, whether you have hair, your height, your weight, and if you have any scars. So just kind of noticeable stuff. A couple notes down there, and here's a breakdown where you can list the spell stones that you found. You write in here how many unidentified stones you've had, so you don't have to identify them right away. But when there's a lull in the action or a lull in the story, you guys want to take a quick break, let's see if you can identify your spell stones. That's something to do. Here's another breakdown where you can list other stones you may have found and to track your heal stones. So that's the basic character sheet. And then we have a quick map. This is a southern tip of Ambien. This is part of the play test when I was first coming up with the game that I drew up for the game session with my players. And this is the inside of the back cover. So again, another quick reference for the spell tables. So when you find your spell stone, you attune to the spell stone and it's successful. Then you flip to the back page. Here you have a quick reference, and you can just roll your d6 and your d10 to figure out what spell you've got. And here we have a quick breakdown of basically like a critique from somebody that went through my game in the early stages, and he worded it so well that I included it in the game guide here because it's very complimentary. So that's pretty much it, gang. That's the basics of our game guide. It gives you a little bit of detail. Obviously, there's not a lot. There's only 64 pages. Not a heck of a lot of reading. Hopefully the game explains itself well and how to play, mostly the combat mechanics, of course. And again, on here you can just pop through. When I play online, all my players live out of town from where I live, so we play online. And I have this open so that I can pop to any page that I want to try to figure things out. List of stones. It just really helps, terms. You can go up to you can come to here even, and you can click here as well. It's also hyperlinked this way. Sample gameplay. Click, boom, away you go. Okay. So any questions, feel free to leave me a comment or message me if you like. If you're interested in the game, go to itch.io and look for Swords and Stones. And it's free to download. And try it out, see if you like it. And if you do, leave some comments on your gameplay and how it turned out, positive or negative. I'm good either way, because then that'll help me, construct it and help maybe advance it even further. So thanks again. Have a great day and keep them rolling.